book review on video. This time, The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, a big star in Polish fantasy fiction. This book was originally published in 1993 in Poland, but it was not translated into English until 2007. I got this book as a present from a friend. Unfortunately, like last year or something, but I read it recently, finally. Unfortunately, I have to say that I was kind of disappointed in this book. I was really looking forward to reading it because I have read quite a lot of fantasy fiction and science fiction, and it's mostly American or English, British, that is. So I was really excited about reading something from Poland. I've hardly read any literature from Poland at all, and Polish fantasy. Wow. That seemed really, really cool. Unfortunately, like I said, I was pretty much overall disappointed in this book. I thought that it was, it's not that original. It has a lot of elements that you more or less expect in a fantasy novel. The languages and all that, and the structure of the book also, I thought was pretty weird. The plot, it's a place, a country, a world where various supernatural things are real, various monsters exist. Our hero, Geralt, is what is called a witcher. That's my favorite part of the book, that concept. I really like that. He is a fighter in the cause of good. He basically travels around and kills monsters for money. He's kind of a bounty hunter, but he goes after not humans, but supernatural entities. And anyone can hire him. And he travels, and he has been through something that is, it's not described, but it's or not specifically described, but it's as a child he was taken from his family and brought to this place where, I don't know, Witcher school, whatever, and he was given training and he was given drugs that have changed him, both physically and mentally. So he is, or Witchers generally, they have abilities that normal people don't have. And because of that, they're often feared. So the idea is pretty good, and I really like the concept of the Witcher, definitely, but I don't feel it's very well executed. I think that the plot is pretty standard, such as it is, and I also, like I said, I didn't really like the structure of the book, because I was expecting a novel, but this is more like a collection of stories. The structure is that he arrives in a place, or he has arrived in a place, which turns out to be kind of like a temple, or a nunnery, God knows, a temple for a goddess where various worshippers live, devotees. So it's like an abbey in a way. And the Mother Superior, so to speak, is his friend, and he stays there for a while, and there are these short parts of the book, like 4 or 5 pages, that describe his stay there and things that happen. And then in each of these short sections, something comes up, something's mentioned, like a person or an experience he's had, and then the next section, which is much longer, which may be as long as 40 pages, we hear that story, which may be years in the past, of how he traveled somewhere with someone, what happened then, or how he met a person, or whatever. So the book seemed really just a collection of bits and pieces. It doesn't seem to me like a novel at all. And I was definitely expecting it to be a novel, so I didn't really like the structure of the book. As for the language, it's, like I said, not all that. It's okay, but it's nothing special, and I think that is primarily due to the translator. I know nothing about the translator at all. I just see from her name, Danusia Stock, that she is in all likelihood Polish, i.e. not English. And personally, I believe, feel free to disagree with me in the comments if you don't think, as I do, that when you translate a book, you should be translating into your own first language. I.e. when someone translates something into English, then they should have English as their first language and have learned, say, Polish secondarily. And I think this book is a really good example of why that is the case, because there are things here that are obviously mistranslated. There are errors that I don't think a person who was a native English speaker would ever make. Not a lot of them, but enough to make this translation seemed kind of amateurish, which of course detracts from the book as a whole. Like I said, this book was published 14 years before it was translated into English. So I hope, since this guy is, as it says on the cover, a European superstar, he has written a lot of books since then, I hope that this is an early work of his, that they're starting to publish him from the beginning, so that if I were to read a book that he wrote, say, 2006, I would be impressed. He would be much better. I hope that this is an early work and that's why it's perfectly okay, but absolutely nothing special. It's a standard work of fantasy, not very well structured in my opinion, and not that well translated, not very original, but with some clever conceits that may work really well if better developed. The setting as a whole, I feel, is quite underdeveloped, and he could do a lot with this, but probably would require a longer book than just 270 pages. But overall, I'm glad I read it, because like I said, I've read hardly anything by any Polish writers before, and it was perfectly fine to pass the time with and get a glimpse of Polish fantasy fiction. I'm going to ask some other friends to read this, some book crossers, to see what they think, to get some outside views on the book. But for my money, this was pretty much standard fantasy, nothing that special, and because of that, because I was hoping for something a little special, since it is from Eastern Europe and not from the main producers of fantasy fiction, I was hoping for something special. I didn't get it, but I'm still glad that I read this book, The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski.